Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Saturday night. About 10 o'clock here, Saturday night, California time, August 5th, 2023. Latest earthquake activity on the globe here. Let's go and check this out real quick. Looks like a 4.9 into the southern mid-Atlantic ridge area. Kind of new movement going on out there. After a crazy day of earthquake activity. Goodness, there's been a lot of earthquake activity as far as large damaging earthquakes here over the last 24 hours. Let's go ahead and check out space weather activity first. So what do you guys think? Correlation here with space weather uptick along with earthquake activity, or do you think this is all purely coincidence? I'm leaning towards potentially the relation here between the space weather and elevated earthquake activity here recently. We did see a proton event enter into the ionosphere earlier today prior to all this movement, but also a pretty large X flare coming in here to the region. This is the fifth largest X flare, or the fifth largest flare in solar cycle 25, and that came from a departing sunspot. And this is the one I kind of talked about here earlier. It's going to be 3386 out there on the western limb. It grew very drastically, very complex, quickly. And I seen that in our update. If you watch our morning update here today, you'll see that I mentioned about this solar sunspot and the potential for some large flares. We did receive an R3 level radio blackout there across various areas around the globe, mostly the sunlit side of the Earth, West Coast, and the Pacific Ocean, from a large X flare. Now, luckily, that was not Earth directed. It was out there on the western limb of the sun. It looks like it did produce potentially a CME. We'll have to watch this and monitor that for maybe some adjustment for the 3-day here coming up. But yeah, that was a very large flare. Again, not Earth directed. But it did affect the ionosphere there with the protons there kicking in really quickly from that solar flare. That was an X 1.2, pretty strong flare. Now let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here. Now, okay, maybe X 1.2, it looks like maybe one, if you discredit these multiple X flares here. Notice an X 2.2, X 2.2, X 1.5, X 1.5. That would put the X 1.2. Is it included here? There we go. X. Well, oh goodness! It looks like it was an X 1.6. So that would make the today's flare number 5 on the list here for the rank. Far as the flaring goes in solar cycle 25, that's a pretty significant flare. Again, this was not Earth directed. That does not look like it's working there. Kevin, there at Solar Ham, when you click on the image here, that takes you to an internal server error. So just FYI, if you are watching this video, but that's definitely a strong flare. Coming in earlier, the 5th strongest here in this solar cycle number 25, way out there again on the western limb of the sun. Not Earth directed, but we'll possibly see the effects of it here in the days to come. Right now, 3386, the region of the culprit, so to speak, of the X flare. Notice how complex it was here earlier in the morning update. Look at that. Very complex there with the structure of the colors. The latest imagery, though, shows it scooting off here on the western limb of the sun. Still fairly complex. We've noticed this area ramping up here earlier last night and this morning. And this whole general area is showing complex structure within these sunspot regions. They're amplifying here in the complexity of the sunspot cores, this area as well. Looking around center disk here of the sun, far as Earth facing sunspot regions, about the only regions of noteworthy activity is across this area here for now. These areas across the Earth-facing side of the sun do not harbor any potential there for any major solar flaring, so we'll just continue to watch that. But that's a significant flare, pretty crazy. Beautiful feature. Notice how we did have a little bit of upstepping here on the step ladder, so to speak, but it just sparked all of a sudden into the X flare category, and that's very typical there of complex structures in the sunspot cores. All right, right now we're still seeing some proton events kicking up here across the polar regions there on the northern hemisphere of the Earth, and also down here across the Earth polar regions. And that is due to the proton events being thrown at us from the sun, currently taking place from this eruptive activity. 75% chance there of that continuing. That may continue overnight and for the next couple days. Right now, 99% chance of a C flare, obviously. M flare at 55. X flare remains elevated there at 10% chance. But X 1.6, that's a pretty significant flare there from 3386. Goodness. All right, so coming up here, it looks like we may have a little bit of G1 forecasting coming up here on the August 8th time period. We'll get into that here in a couple days. Right now, it's a couple days out, and who knows, we may see some activity stirring up from the coronal hole, or the CME that was produced from this X flare today. After the August 8th time period, so we'll continue to watch that and monitor that for activity. So all of this space weather elevated activity comes at a heightened time of earthquake activity as well. We did see a large, well, this is a moderate damaging earthquake there into China, a 5.4. Now 5.4, you think out here along the west coast will do very minimal damage, but this is out there in the populated areas of China. It was up there in the red pager category. So that means that things are somewhat elevated in terms of estimated economic losses, estimated potential fatalities. This is a populated area. It was only, looks like this occurred about 10 kilometers deep. So it is relatively shallow. But again, the infrastructure here across the area of China, not quite as advanced as the civilized world out here, the states and whatnot. A lot of mud reinforced houses, buildings, and stuff like that across this area of China. So no doubt damage will be elevated out there from this 5.4 earthquake. Also, we did see a 5.2 earthquake here into Australia. Now the EMSC data is reporting it as, well, there's a little inconsistency. Originally, this was a 5.5. We'll get to the swarm up here into the Indonesia Islands area soon. But this was originally reported as a 5.5. Looks like EMSC reporting a 5.0. USGS a 5.2. But this was felt across the area of Australia. Now, here is the Did You Feel It reports here from the USGS. Mostly light to moderate shaking across the region. Not a whole lot of populated density out here within the epicenter of that earthquake, which struck about 10 kilometers deep. This is definitely one of the larger quakes out here in Australia. A look, though, at historical data, specifically here across southwestern Australia. There is that 5.2 from today. We did have another 5.2 a couple years ago further to the southwest. As you can see here on the map, 5.0s and 6.0s occur out here randomly within the southwestern edge here of Puerto Rico. Although over here around the, what is that, the Darrington Range area, the mountain range, the fault system out here, we have seen some 6-pointers. The last one back in 1979, 6 kilometers deep. So earthquake activity can definitely stir up out here well away from the plate boundary. The Australia area has been known to have some large quakes. Today's quake, just kind of a reminder that earthquake activity can take place within this region, well away from the plate boundary. So just a heads up. You know, we've been seeing these oddball earthquakes here recently. Look at the earthquake 3D globe. Let me show you guys here. China, significant earthquake swarm out here across the Afghanistan area. Super deep movement here across Argentina. Looks like we got a swarm of activity across Puerto Rico as well. I mean, I don't even know how I can keep up with all this activity. There's a lot of movement taking place here. So let's go ahead and check out the area of eastern Afghanistan here. Okay, this has been a region of definitely some swarming activity here. Oh, in the past couple days, right? We're looking at 10 earthquakes around eastern Afghanistan of various magnitudes. The largest, a 5.8, 207 kilometers deep. Now, 7.0 magnitude earthquakes are very common out here across the Afghanistan region. This is all very, well, it's all being pushed up towards the north and northeast area from the India region, the India plate area. A lot of pushing up going on here across the eastern Afghanistan area. Not for sure if we're going to see a 7-pointer. I know it's been a little while since we've seen one. A look at the last 30 days of activity here across eastern Afghanistan shows an upper 5-pointer along with quite a few 4s out there in this region. So, like any other area that shows heightened movement as far as earthquake activity goes, we'll definitely keep an eye on that region. But China, this earthquake activity here, a little, I can't really say surprising, because we know that the general plate stress out here across the Western Pacific is very high across the Kuril-Kamchatka and the Japan Trench. It's been awfully quiet out here. There's been quite a bit of strain building up here in this region. So the westward movement and momentum and pressure is great out here across this region of the plate boundary and outside of the plate boundary. Obviously, they're in that China earthquake that we've seen earlier this afternoon. So big time earthquake swarm out here across the Indonesia Islands area. Now, doesn't look like the USGS is reporting too much of it. There's a 5.2 here outside of this zone, but if you look here on the map, aside from that 5.2, there's a swarm of 3s kicking off in this area. That's a very good sign of the strain that's out here across the Indonesia Islands area. We did see, if you remember, we did see quite a bit of, we've seen one deep earthquake out here. Let me show you guys. Hold on. See if it'll pop up here on the map of the Indonesia Islands region. This one right here. Hold on a second here. Okay, so this 4.5 here outside of the sea region, right? That's a super deep earthquake. There's a lot of warping. Notice the warping of the topography of the map. Subduction zones, trenches, transform faults, all twisting up this area, so to speak. This deep earthquake occurring at well below 640 kilometers deep is a triggering quake that stirred up all the activity that we're seeing today on the earthquake 3D globe. Remember, earthquake activity down at the deeper regions will always trigger some surface earthquake activity and strain amongst various regions of subduction zones and other fault systems that may be out here. So that is the effects that we're seeing from that deeper earthquake activity here just a few days ago. Goodness, that's a lot of activity stirring up there across that region. And the movement up here across eastern Afghanistan, there's a mixture of deeper and shallower earthquake activity. And I think that has a lot to do here with the strain amongst the Himalayas. I think we may be seeing potentially something brewing out here further large scale within this area of India. So watch that region pretty closely. And good, you know, it's a swarm of movement out here, folks. Down here across the Antarctica and the Pacific plate boundary as well. Got some movement stirring up down here into the divergent boundaries. There's something brewing underneath the Pacific plate and potentially all across this area. USGS reporting a 5.2 earlier this evening. 10 kilometers deep. Now this is within the fracture zone areas out here. Divergent boundary. A couple earthquakes occurring within this area. That should potentially put the target zone out here across the New Zealand region, where we did see a 4.5 earlier today. That earthquake coming in just off of the plate boundary early this morning near Riverton, New Zealand, about 39 kilometers deep. So I want to run over here to the GeoNet servers and see what we have going on. Stand by here for just a second while I pull this up. All right, so this is the all magnitudes map here from the GeoNet servers. 2.2 a couple hours ago. A couple other smaller quakes in there as well. 3.6. That's off of the Kermadec Trench a couple hours ago as well. Same with the 3.7, 4.1 as well. Notice the islands get much smaller here with the distance here on the earthquake activity. 2.4 North Island area, there's a 1.5. Definitely looks like things are kicking up or trying to kick up here across the New Zealand region. I think it's noteworthy to watch this area because we have been expecting some larger scale movement here potentially across the area. Now this earthquake here occurring near the, this was about 14 hours or so ago. Across the area. 14 hours ago. What was going on 14 hours ago here? 14 hours ago, 4.5, right? There we go. Notice that signature showing up pretty nicely across the South Island, New Zealand area. That's a very strong quake here across the area. That showed up, again, pretty nicely across the area of South Island. But if you look, we haven't really seen any earthquake activity following that movement, but I think it's noteworthy and best to be prepared as it does sit out there on the major plate boundary here with all the movement going on across the Pacific plate. Definitely noteworthy to keep an eye on this region for some further movement. All right, notice the North American plate here lighting up kind of crazy as well. What do we got up here in Washington? A 3.0 occurring northeast of Mount Vernon area. This is south of Mount Baker region. Let's see what we got here. Yellowstone's kind of peeking up as well. I'll check that out here in a second. But this 3.0 coming into the area, very shallow earthquake activity out here across the mountain regions. Now this is in automatic status. It has not been reviewed by a seismologist. It could get upgraded, it could get downgraded, depending on how you see it. The USGS will obviously make a final decision on that earthquake there southwest of Mount Baker. Now this is, if you notice here across the Pacific Northwest, nothing really showing up, and that's because it's a weekend. The USGS has this little thing going on here where no small microquakes are reported out here. It's got to be above a certain threshold, and this 3.0 broke that threshold up here into northern Washington. So we'll wait and see what the reports are on the final review of that earthquake. Northern California here, a little spotty activity across the region. Mostly around the Cobb Mountain area. I'm not noticing any major earthquake activity out here. Did have a 2.8 near Bernie early this morning. But aside from that, mostly smaller microquakes here across the state of California. The same for the Southern California as well. No major swarms. Idaho did have a actually a 3.9. Goodness. Off of the Sawtooth. Well, let's see where this is at. Stand by here. There's this Sawtooth. This is in the Bitterroot mountain range here. 14 kilometers deep. I guarantee you that earthquake showed up across Yellowstone. Stand by while I pull up the latest information here. Check that out. Look at that. All right. That was at 9:03, just an hour, about an hour ago. You notice that earthquake showing up? There we go. 3.9 showing up pretty nicely here across Yellowstone National Park. Now, this earthquake did not strike, obviously, in Yellowstone, but it showed up across the seismograph stations here. That's a good indicator here of obviously, of something going on here. Now, look at this. Look at that activity. Now, if I wasn't observing earthquake activity elsewhere across the park, I would assume that's thunderstorm activity, but that does not look like thunderstorm activity. Stand by here for a second while I get rid of some of these windows. I want to pull up the latest windy map here from the area and see what's going on, because that kind of looks like earthquake activity in a swarm fashion for a couple hours. Now, radar and satellite, weather radar. Okay, I'm going to go back the last 6 hours just to double check, see what's going on out here across Wyoming. We did have quite a few thunderstorms out here earlier throughout the evening. Notice up here, Cody, Wyoming, areas around Yellowstone. Watch this pretty closely. Not for sure why this is so slow. There we go. A lot of thunderstorms. See the lightning out there brewing up a couple hours or so ago. Pretty big time, mostly around the northwest corner of the park. So looking at this, just want to look here real quick. I'm uncertain. It's kind of a toss-up right now if I believe this is earthquake activity or thunderstorm activity. You know, a lot of times thunderstorms will come in waves. This is about an hour timestamp, little break, and another hour here across the Yellowstone area. So I am going to have to study this throughout the evening and see if this is just thunderstorm activity showing up here or earthquake activity. Notice that showed up mostly around the northwest corner of the park, and that is where, as I showed you guys, the thunderstorm activity brewed up and went through. It kind of looks like thunderstorm activity, but I'm uncertain, folks. So we'll get to that tomorrow morning and see if that is indeed weather related or not. It kind of looks like thunderstorm activity. I don't know how many lightning strikes were up there, but you know, there's a lot that can be picked up here across the seismograph stations here at Yellowstone and any area where seismic monitoring has taken place. So either way, we do know that 3.9 showed up legitly across the Yellowstone area. All right, let's see what else we have here. Let's check out the tremor map, by the way. What's going on up there with the tremor? Oh, stand by here for a second. It's been a fun day. I got to tell you guys about something that happened today, and I've noticed it over the past couple days. I'm not going to go into it right now, but it's about synchronicity and the effects of the sun, right? Solar flares and the activity I've been feeling today. I'm going to go into that at the end of this video. We got about 82 epicenters of tremor activity here across the Cascadia. That's Washington and the Oregon area, showing a little bit of movement as well. A little bit of movement here outside of Colorado and New Mexico. I believe that these are fracking related. Let's go ahead and zoom in here across the area of El Morro, Colorado. That didn't come out very well. 5 kilometers deep out there in the desert. I'm not really seeing any oil fields out there, at least for that one. Down here into New Mexico area, there is second here. Looks like there is some oil areas here in this little camp. They look like campground areas, but I believe these are wastewater disposal wells out here across the mountains of New Mexico. A couple smaller earthquakes occurring out there. The rest of the country, very minimal for the most part. Let's go ahead and check out the Atlantic Ocean. Now, I know we got some stuff stirring up out there right now. A couple fours down here in the southern mid-Atlantic ridge with that earthquake coming in here. A 4.9 near Ascension Islands within the last hour. Also some activity further up north into the, I believe that's the Charlie Gibbs fracture zone. Charlie Gibbs fracture zone. This area has seen a whole bunch of earthquake activity last year. Seen a 5.3 and a 4.5 today. So things are stirring up out here across the Atlantic. Along with everything else here across the globe right now. Things are very active across the plate tectonics. South America region, we did see some further activity here into the surface areas upstream from that deeper earthquake. This morning we did see a 6.2 just after midnight. That was followed up here by a couple couple earthquakes following that movement at the shallower areas around Bolivia and the Chile region. We'll continue to watch that though. Excuse me. For some further movement. As you can see here, the earthquake 3D globe is almost, you know, overloaded, so to speak, in terms of earthquake activity. While Hawaii out there is a quiet spot. Notice that? Nothing going on out there in Hawaii for now. Excuse me. So as we watch this global uptick here, I mean, that's I would have to agree this is pretty much a global earthquake uptick across various areas of the world, unlike what I've seen in quite a while. And whether we have a relation to the space weather event that's occurring here over the past couple days and currently is, you know, remains to be seen. I've seen areas of large earthquake uptick when we've had very minimal solar weather activity. So, but this is one of the times where we're looking at an uptick here in space weather activity. We're talking about proton events, CMEs, and large flare events taking place. And whether that's affecting the plate tectonics, I believe it does. I'm not 100% convinced in that, but I believe it does to an extent. Definitely. So we'll continue to watch that. Some activity up into Alaska as well. And, you know, it's a guessing game where any major earthquake activity is going to take place here. Here in the future, in the near future. It's just best to be on guard. Make sure you have an earthquake plan in terms of, you know, staying safe, keeping your family safe, keeping your items safe. Definitely be on guard, folks. Not seeing too much. Well, this is from earlier today with the enhanced weather out there across portions of the plains. A look at the weather activity. Let me pull up Windy here real quick and see what we have as far as weather radar. And I'm going to get into what I experienced here today, folks, with my synchronicity of life and things that are going on here. I really got to tell you guys about it. Oklahoma, Kansas having a nice noisy party Saturday night. Dodge City. Also areas around Ponca City area as well. Getting in on some thunderstorm action, right? Thunderstorm party out there across northern Oklahoma and Kansas area. If I was out there, I guarantee you I would be, I'd have my porch door open and enjoying the noise. A lot of people like to run and hide from all this noise. Well, yeah, that's not me. California, we're cooking out here. We hit about 104, but goodness, check this out, guys. It's 82 degrees right now. 82 degrees. Temperature-wise out here across California, we are cooking. 86, the official temperature right now outside of Chico with a slight north breeze. 47% humidity, a dew point at 59. So it's not dry. This is not dry for us. 86 down in Yuba City. It's not going to be a very cool night. I'm not even joking. It's going to be pretty hot. And we don't have the Gulf moisture out here across areas of Texas. Look at that. Keeleen, Lake Jackson, Victoria, in the mid 80s right now. Thanks to the Gulf moisture funneling up there from the south. But that's, we don't have that out here. So to have 86 degrees here at 10:30 at night local time, it's just not cool. Definitely not cool. It's not going to cool down much either throughout the remainder of the night. So 4 p.m. tomorrow, looking at 104, 106, 107 out here across the Sacramento Valley area. And that just looks to be the pattern here for a couple days. And a slight cool down, I would say, towards middle of this coming week. And, if you can call 95 a cool down, then so be it. But to me, it's still hot. So anyway, I want to go over something that I've noticed here today. So I was in the pool, swimming here with the little one, and we were listening to music. Okay, she's 6 years old, good swimmer, very observant of the sky and everything like that. So we were playing some music, and the song that we were playing said, heart in the sky. I'm not going to say what song it is, but something about a heart in the sky. Immediately, I'm not talking about a minute later, seconds later, I'm talking immediately later. The 6-year-old said, "Look at the heart in the sky." And I looked up over my shoulder, and I seen what looked like a heart in the sky. Now, how strange is that? She didn't even observe the lyrics of the song. She just happened to look up in the sky and see a heart in the sky, the shape of the clouds. Now, what's the possibilities of a song coming on randomly, speaking about a heart in the sky, and her noticing and saying out loud within literally a split of a second, "Look at the heart in the sky"? Nothing is random out here, folks. That is a prime example that nothing is random. And I've been noticing a couple other things here over the last couple days. You guys heard about Pee Wee Herman dying, right? God rest his soul. I watched him growing up. Whether you like him or not, he was kind of funny. Stupidly funny, but he was kind of funny still. So the previous day prior to his passing, I was browsing some Facebook Reels out there on my phone, like I always do. I'm either on YouTube or I'm browsing Facebook. And I came across one of his videos from his early days talking about, drugs and how not to get involved with them. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of weird. Why would I be seeing that? Pee Wee Herman popping up, talking about, staying away from drugs. It was pretty big back in the 90s, right? Still kind of a big deal. But his awareness was, at the same time, somewhat impressive because he presented himself as a funny guy, but also at the same time, a serious guy when it comes to serious issues like drugs. And so that night, I watched that, didn't think anything about it. And then the following day, I find out that he passed away that day. So I'm seeing little clues, little hints of various programming stuff going on here. It's not by chance, it's not pure coincidentally stuff going on. It's other stuff that I don't want to really put out here on this channel, but those are just a couple items that I've come across here in the past few days. I mean, the chances of a song coming on the radio and the lyrics matching heart in the sky, and then a little girl looking up into the sky, seeing a heart in the sky formed by clouds, and pronouncing it out loud is astronomical. The odds of that are out of this world. So I don't know what's going on. I've been having a lot of dreams and stuff that's happening lately, and it's very odd. I don't know if you guys been having that either. I think it has to do with the solar weather activity, the proton events coming in here, affecting us here on Earth. I believe that firmly. You know, a lot what goes on here across the ionosphere. We're getting a lot of protons coming in here to the surface. I believe it has effect on reality, and I don't know. It just blew me away, along with all this ghost stuff going on here. You know, here in my house, having a lantern fly off of the dresser here a few nights ago and waking us up, and a soap box falling out of the shower holder cupboard thing that I have in the shower. It's just weird. A lot of weird stuff going on here, folks, and I just want to share that with you guys, just in case something happens and I'm not here to share or give my experience to you folks, because, you know, who knows? I could keep this bottled up, and I could you know, not be here in a couple nights and not be able to tell you guys about this. So I just kind of want to get that off of my shoulder and get this out to you guys. I'm not making any of it up. This is 100% facts, and it just blew me away here today with the heart in the sky. A song, and then a half of a second later, a 6-year-old saying, "Look, it's a heart in the sky." I mean, that, to me, that is, I don't even know. I don't even have words for it. So if you guys have been experiencing anything like that, similar to what I'm experiencing, please let me know. Please share, because I think something's going on here. And I think it's good that we share our stories to one another and everyone out here that's watching these videos. Let me know. All right. I am going to jump off of here right now. Things are quiet across the board as far as earthquake activity goes. A look at the seismograph stations tells me that. But we are looking at some broad scale earthquake activity. And if you look here, the majority of these quakes are well away from the plate boundaries. So that tells me that there's some impending earthquake activity here across the plate boundaries themselves, right? When you get these intraplate earthquakes here, well away from the plate boundaries, you know that something big time is brewing out here across the plate boundaries themselves. I would watch areas across the Kuril Kamchatka, big time. New Zealand as well. We've seen some adjustment down there, but nothing like we should be. Just stay safe out there, folks, and we'll chat you guys a little bit later tomorrow sometime. Have a good night.